I'm just wondering, so people who don't know who you are,
Oh,
um,
sorry about that.
no, you're good, you're good. Don't worry
No,
about that.
so I describe myself as maybe a writer because that's kind of how I started. But I started a magazine, a print magazine called Film Threat in the 80s. In 1985, I dropped out of college. I started a magazine uh, to talk about like, then they were called like cult films or alternative films. The term
Mhm.
independent film did not become popularized until 1989.
Oh
that's
wow.
when that's when Steven Soderbergh's movie Sex, Lies, and Videotape premiered at the United States Film Festival. Well, it used to be called the United States Film Festival, but the year his movie premiered, they changed the name to the Sundance Film Festival, which is now its own
Oh.
big whole thing. So
Mm.
Film Threat began like covering independent films, and that was kind of my trajectory, was magazines, but I was always obsessed with pop culture. I sold Film Threat to Larry Flint in the early 90s, the magazine. He owned it for a little bit, and then I spun off a bunch of little other magazines like Wild Cartoon Kingdom, which was like Film Threat but about animation. And then there was a paper crisis in the 90s where paper prices just like ballooned, like doubled and tripled.
Oof.
So small publishers were in trouble. So I turned Film Threat into a website in 1996. This is when it was like HTML, and we were
Yeah.
one of like maybe 5 movie websites on the internet that was like IMDb, Film Threat, comingsoon.net, like all these like early movie websites. Um, and I don't know, it just sort of evolved from there. Now there are more movie websites that cover movies than there are movies being made in a year. And there are
Oh wow.
probably about maybe, I mean, if you include a lot of foreign films, like maybe like what, 20,000 movies made in a year or more. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, but yeah, I've always had a fascination with here's the big mainstream movies, and I like those when they're good, but then there's the smaller independent films. So I really come from like an independent film, independent artist, independent art versus corporate art, but also written books. I wrote a book called The 50 Greatest Movies Never Made. I wrote a book called, you can just look me up on Amazon. I wrote a book called The Ultimate Film Festival Survival Guide. So I have like what I would describe as a diversified career portfolio. And then I started doing TV in the late 90s, and each job kind of led to the next job. And I think part of it was because I just didn't care. So I would go to an audition and I would just be like, I have other stuff to do that's more important than this audition. So my who gives a shit attitude actually translated into like, no, we want you to do this. And I'm like, I'm working on a book. I got other stuff more important than this. Whereas for the most part, people in Hollywood, when they're pursuing a job, an on-camera job, whether it's TV or film, are so desperate, they come off as desperate. And
Mhm.
I guess I'm not saying I did this on purpose. I'm saying I literally, I was a young dad. I was a stay-at-home dad at that time. My then wife worked for Disney, oddly enough. So we had the silver pass.
Oh.
You could get yourself plus 3 other people in, 4 people in on a silver pass. So she worked for Disney. I was the stay-at-home dad, but I did Film Threat during the day, and I was writing books. And then this whole TV thing kind of fell in my lap, and I'm like, I'm too busy. Like I don't know if I can do this. And the less I cared about it, the more they wanted me. So maybe a little pro tip for like sometimes if you organically like not care about something, it kind of just like the universe, things kind of fall into place. And that's kind of how my quote TV career, such as it is, kind of happened. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah,
yeah.
and yeah, I told Grae, I know that he's busy with his new job. I was like, you got to watch Attack of the Doc. It's so good.
Did you watch it, Grae?
Yeah, I just watched it before we went live actually. But yeah.
Oh, cool.
Pretty
Nice.
sweet, pretty good. Yeah. It's like
Yeah, and
I kind of it's reminiscent of better times compared to how it is now.
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
it's
it's weird. Like I wanted to capture that. Like, remember when we just like we would disagree about stuff, but we all loved it, and we didn't like. I don't like you because you have these views. That is new. That is new, and that is the last. It's probably been happening for 10 years, but it's shocking to me. I don't understand it. I was always like, like especially when it was like a presidential election, it's like, well, the person I voted for didn't win, but that's all good. And now we're moving on. And now we're so polarized in this country. There is sort of an underlying thread in Attack of the Dock about, I'm not trying to preach anything, but just by showing you how it used to be, you kind of can draw your own conclusions. And then additionally, there's a montage of YouTubers at the end. And by the way, they're all over the political spectrum. That was on purpose. That was totally by design and on purpose to show like, hey, ultimately, did Attack of the Show or G4 really need to come back? No, because YouTube took up the mantle of what G4 used to do. That is now, I don't overtly come out and say that. I kind of do a little bit, but like, I look at YouTube and I'm because I started watching YouTube pretty aggressively, like in like 2016. I'm watching these shows, and a lot of it was because the Star Wars sequels were coming out. I wanted information. I wanted to see other people talk about it. And I was like, this is so good. I'm discovering people that talk about comics. I discovered, Young Ripa,
Yeah.
I discovered like, the Nerdrotic. I discovered, all sorts of John Campea. I watched John Campea. I watched like all these different YouTubers all over the place. And it was just like, wow, like you don't need Attack of the Show to come back. Like it's just, it doesn't matter. It's other people are doing it and they're doing great. So I that was just really kind of cool to experience. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm talking too much. Am I talking?
No.
It's
Like,
fine. It's fine.
No, like everyone, we have more people watching us today is because of you, and I think everyone loves the story, and hearing that. Yeah, and when I saw the montage, I was like, I hope I see FNT. I hope I see Eric July there, and like I did at the end, and then I was like, I also saw, what's it called again? I also saw S-Fan like from Twitch, and then I saw Hassan. I'm like, okay, cool. This I was like, good, because I think you're not trying to send a message or anything. I was like, oh, I'm whatever, I'm whatever political side or whatever, or whatever, I'm counterculture or whatever. But it's more for this is what we used to do, and I felt that.
I've had people tell me that they were emotionally moved by it. Like it's just like, wow, that era was sort of it was lightning in a bottle. I don't think you could recapture it. They tried with the relaunch of G4. I thought it was, they just made some poor hiring choices. Make of that what you will. I try to to be fair, G4, it took years. It took 5 years for G4 to get good. G4 launched in 2002, threw a lot of things at the wall, seeing what would stick. Attack of the Show started in March of 2005. I was actually on 3 episodes of The Screensavers before they changed the name to Attack of the Show. So I was on the first week that Attack of the Show happened, I was on that show, and I was on till the very end, almost 8 years later. So it was just a couple months shy of 8 years, but like, it was just weird to see how it changed, how the culture changed. And, it took 5 years from G4. It was like in 2007, I'm like, oh my God, the show's really good. Olivia's good. You've got people like Blair Butler and Adam and Morgan. And just like, we were like, it's like, oh wow, like it's happening, right? Like this is, and it was cool. It was also the least money I ever made in TV, but it was the most freedom and the most fun I ever had. And it kind of tracked with like nerd culture was not mainstream.
Yes.
When the show, when G4 launched in 2002, nerd culture was still like, I'm going to hide these long boxes in my basement because I don't want people to know that I'm a nerd. And, I was never shy, or I was never ashamed of being a nerd, but it wasn't something I talked about with other people. And frankly, I'm also like a nerd with like diversified tastes. Like, I like the NFL. I like football. In fact, I don't know if you want to put me full screen for a second. I was going through my collection of sports.
Oh, that's me. How do I? I have no idea how to do this. I have no idea.
Click here, just switch me. Just no.
Okay. Wait.
Go to the layout. You see the layout at the bottom?
Yeah.
Make it so one person is big, or just like click on me so I'm larger.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Hold on. I'm boomering this. I've never done this
okay.
before. Okay.
Okay.
Wait. How do I do this again?
It's all
Do I hit
good.
shift?
So I have one of my favorite sports trading cards. Do you guys recognize number 19 from the Jets?
Okay.
In the 80s, he saved the universe.
Oh.
It's Flash Gordon, folks. It's Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
You don't
Flash
see
Gordon.
this.
Yeah.
This is my sport. This is my collection of sports stuff. I have a trading card with stats for Flash Gordon. So there you go. This is a super nerdy.
There we go.
No, wait. Okay, here we go.
I got
Maybe
it.
a better look at that card. Do you see it? It's Flash Gordon, number 19, quarterback, New York Jets. And here's your Flash Gordon stats on the back of that card. So there you go. If you're into if you're into collecting trading cards. So there you go.
That is there we go. That's
good.
amazing.
You can see my Dune popcorn buckets in the background. There they are. Shai Halud. There you go.
That is so cool. And yeah, I 100% agree with you. So when during high school, like I chat knows about this, where like all I cared about was I didn't care about grades. All I cared about was getting laid. And I was able to I guess it sounds crude, but I was able to bag myself a junior when I was a freshman. So everyone's like, oh, Phil's got game and stuff like that. And I think I just got lucky. But she was, in a way, like ashamed of me, is because I was into that whole nerd culture as well. I loved playing video games. I had comics, and and during this time I really got into manga and anime. And then she was, yeah.
I'll just say this. If you've ever seen the documentary Revenge of the Nerds, everyone knows that nerds got game. Because do you remember the big conflict in that when the hot girl, the unattainable hot girl, has sex with a nerd, and he's way more into it than the football player? Yeah, just go back and watch Revenge of the Nerds. It's not a documentary, but may as well be.
Thanks for checking out this segment of the Project Eggroll podcast. If you like what we do here, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you will know next time when we go live. We do go live every Saturday at 8 p.m. Once again, we are just getting started. Tons of more video to come. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next time.